This is Dr. Brandon Beals. I am one of the founding and lead pastors of Venture Church in the Seattle area. Fun fact, I've been to 48 of the 50 states in America.
My name is Tony Matar. I'm a pastor at Venture Church. I pastor a church called Venture Seattle, in the heart of Seattle. And I have been to 6 states in all of America. Welcome to Pastors Unfiltered.
Hey everyone, welcome to Pastors Unfiltered. I am a young adult in our church. My name is Tony Matar. I'm your co-host today. And I'm joined by my lovely co-host, the Reverend, the Doctor, not a bishop, but Brandon Lee Beals is in the house. How are you?
Have you changed since we filmed the last podcast?
I've not. I went to bed I go to bed with this hat. I wear it all day long. Like I told you, the minute I take it off,
You aged 40 years.
back pain, ibuprofen. The minute I put it on, dude, I'm
You look
staying
like
up
you're
till
18.
Staying up till
Good
10
job.
p.m. I'm rallying. Anyways, how are you?
I'm doing great.
I like you in a button-up. You look great.
I'm only dressed this way because it's the date night at the church.
So you're on a date with Di Beals tonight
Yep.
and 200 other couples.
Yep.
That will be fun.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Now, help me understand, people are weird with their marriages out in public. I mean, you ever notice this? How some people rub their wife's back, but then she's really not paying attention to him. So even though he's rubbing her back, she just really doesn't care. Have you ever seen these kind of people?
Sure.
Okay. Are you guys physical touch people in public, or are you guys what do you guys like?
I think when we're traveling together, yes, we would hold hands or something like that, but we're not like a make out in public
Thank
type
God.
couple.
Yeah, that's weird to me.
I think
Yeah.
the whole church would feel weird if
Ariel and I did that one time, and it was weird.
we're also not the couple that wants to post selfies of us kissing everywhere.
Yeah,
Occasionally we'll post a selfie of Di kissing me on a cheek, but
I've noticed.
it's got to be somewhere in front of the pyramid,
Yes.
somewhere epic, not at the mall or something.
True. Well, hey, let's give a
What
huge-
about you?
What? Oh, Ariel and I? Well, so
Are you guys a make out in public group?
We are. So, hey, everyone. Ariel's sitting right here. Say hi.
Hello.
Thank you.
This is the only way we could get Ariel to actually listen to an episode of our podcast.
My wife doesn't care about this project in my life.
She does. She does. She just
So
can't
we
let
brought
you
her
know.
here.
she
I
does.
bribed her with Azul. We don't eat Azul as much anymore. So, just because we don't live close anymore. But yeah, so she's here. Hello. How are you?
Great.
What are we like in public?
I'm not mic'd, so you should answer that question.
That's fine. People can hear it. We're I think we're hand holders, and then but I want to keep holding your hand, and then you let go, and I just keep the hand right there, and then you eventually you're all right, guys.
Is it because Tony has a sweaty hand?
No, thank God. That's disgusting. I think that's an ick for me that I couldn't get past.
claim
So
clear?
are you guys this type of hand holders or this?
This?
How cute.
What is this?
This is
I
like
don't
a
know.
peace treaty.
Very. I would
Our
picture
nations are
this
good.
would be the way that Morgan and Nicole would hold hands. I'm probably
Well,
literally
it's-
going to end up having to apologize for saying that.
You know what? We probably will. Hey, huge shout out to our sponsor, Anderson Lawn Care. Check out Micah Anderson for all your lawn care needs and snow removal.
I know it's the time of year where weather's going to start getting better in Seattle,
gonna get
and
better.
you're going to want to get your yard set up. So you better book out Micah right now.
Hey, I don't want to spend too much time in the front end because we have an incredible guest with us today who I find very funny. So that's good. And I don't, for someone who laughs at a lot of stuff, you have to be really funny to make me laugh.
So for our listeners, you are probably aware that Tony and I, one of the things that we have in common is we love comedians.
We love comedians. We text about it. PB will say, hey, check out this guy on Netflix. I'll watch him. I'll go, oh, he's pretty good.
We go to comedy shows
We go
together.
to comedy shows. I wish you had gone with me to Sebastian Maniscalco.
I have seen him
so
twice
good.
in Vegas.
Oh, he was so good. He's probably my favorite comedian right now.
Well, my favorite comedian is Andrew Stanley.
Me too. He's yeah. We are joined today by Andrew Stanley,
Yeah.
who probably feels really awkward now.
Suck it, Sebastian. I'm the favorite now.
Hey, we were just talking about your podcast. You had
Yeah.
made a statement that I hope we can pretend that we're hearing for the first time again on this podcast. But what happened with your pod? You said you've had 2.
Oh yeah, we had 2 podcasts, both ended due to lack of interest. No, my co-host both times, same guy, both times got too busy and was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to learn how to edit audio. So I guess I don't have a podcast.
We've discovered that AI does a great job editing audio. Well, actually, we don't edit. That's why we get in trouble.
We don't edit. That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like a one-take wonder. We don't. If we say something, we just go for it.
It's got to be really, really bad for us to go back and say, hey, will you cut out that
There's been
portion?
a couple moments where I've texted Greenie. There's been a couple moments.
Like, hey, I just Googled what I said. Turns out it does not mean what I thought it meant. So if you could scoop that on out of the episode.
So is that the main reason? Main reason is your buddy is not available?
Yeah, we had a great podcast, I thought, called No Worries If Not, where there was no theme. It was just two straight white guys talking. Thought there'd be a huge demand for. Turns out thousands of other versions of that. My favorite part of that podcast, though, was at the beginning, we didn't have any real advertisements. So we would write fake ones, and the other person would have to read it for the first time live on the podcast. We'd always try to get the other person to say something terrible. So we would try to come up with the most deranged fake companies. The other person would just have to, with a straight face, try to read
Okay, what's
it.
the best one you came up with?
All right. The best one is it was for a company I made up called Mailbox Lizards. And it's a company where you don't really want to commit to having a pet, but you can get this special lizard that just lives in your mailbox. You just see him once a day when you get the mail, and he just kind of chills in there. But it was our best one because I started the ad read by the first line was I'm a pet-o-file, meaning I love pets. But when he read it, he just goes, I'm a pedophile. I mean, and I wrote it in a way that he wouldn't know what he's saying until he'd already said it. And he was like, he goes, meaning I love pets. And therefore, so that's the one we always remember.
Huh.
Yeah.
That makes sense why that's not probably...
Yeah, so I don't know why our
happening anymore.
podcast didn't last. Yeah, it's so weird when we would start them off with such strong jokes.
Well, we only have 253 listeners, but they're faithful.
Hey, you can make a career off of that. If that guy's cutting all of their lawns, he's gonna want to stay advertising.
That is
If you
true.
get him
That's true.
253 gigs, he's gonna pay a lot.
It is. So can I tell you a quick story before we dive in? Because we want to hear a little bit about you. We went and saw you here in Seattle last summer.
The Laugh Factory.
The Laugh Factory. Now listen, I live in Seattle. I'm 10 minutes out from downtown. Nothing phases me anymore. Right? Like a naked dude, like eating a Cinnabon happens all the time.
Saw that guy.
Wait a second. That doesn't phase you?
No, it's Seattle.
That would
So-
phase me the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well,
Do you think somebody gave him the Cinnabon?
I don't know how he got.
It was his
no,
last.
Yeah, you think he just? I got
Well, he
fucked.
probably went to Cinnabon. They saw him naked and said, take
Here,
take
just-
as many as you want.
just
If
go.
you-
Leave.
If you will please just go a few blocks away,
Yes.
we will give you as many Cinnabons as you want.
mini buns.
You are hurting business by standing out here.
And so like Ariel and I, one of our things that we do is comedy clubs. And so like we go listen to comedians. Now I don't love when comedy is just dark and dirty. That's just not for me. But I can't control who's on stage. I don't know what they're gonna share. So we went and saw your show. A couple of the openers were a little rough. We're saying
I remember that I did not know them.
yeah.
I don't remember who they are, but I remember being like, I don't know them.
We're all on a journey, and I'm gonna believe that they're coming to Christ. That's what's happening. And we made the mistake from the get-go.
Not we. You.
We made the mistake from the get-go. We sat in the front row, which I never like to do at comedy shows, because they're gonna pick on you all night.
Of course.
Well, I don't remember my exact sales from that weekend, but I think most people were on the front row.
Yes.
It was
I'm remembering
a
the show
Sunday
correctly.
night in July.
Yeah, it was a small club.
A small club.
Everybody's
and-
visible.
Yeah. And me, just like being the evangelist I am, they go, "What do you do for a living, man?" One of the comedians points out, and I just unashamedly, "Oh, I'm a pastor."
Mhm.
And oh man,
Yeah.
Basically,
this
he
little light
not
of mine,
only
I'm gonna let it shine.
he did it.
The
Not
onslaught.
only did he ruin the next hour and a half for me and Morgan,
Uh-huh.
but he ruined it for everyone else that was there too.
and every comedian just goes, "Look at these two pastors or three pastors. What
Yeah.
idiot!" Like they just kept railing
Every-
on us.
The,
Every
the
single.
best part about this was after we left and we walked out, like his best friend is the other pastor that was there. and he reamed him.
No,
in the
here's what
park. He
happened.
was so upset with it.
No. We get in the car. No one says anything for like a minute. It's just silent. And I go, what'd you guys think of the show? And Morgan goes, what did we think of the show? And just rails into me. What did he?
I had never seen Morgan mad.
Oh, dude, he was irate.
If you could go back, what would you have said?
Oh, I sell
you
fire
thought-
insurance.
You sell fire insurance.
No,
I keep people out of hell.
yeah.
There you go.
That's what I'd say.
I sell fire insurance.
I'd avoid the question. I think there's
You
a time and
said-
a place to be
You
proud.
said you
Maybe
would say
I'd-
you're a professor.
Yeah, I teach
you
at a
are.
university. I'd say I was a professor.
Yeah. And they'd say, what do you teach?
Communication.
Okay. Nice. You want to get up here and tell some jokes? So good at communicating? It's gonna
Grab the mic and take over.
Yeah.
But the show was great.
Then
You
you
did
run it.
great.
Thank you.
The openers are openers, but you did great. It
Thank
was
you
excellent.
so much. I remember it being very fun. It was a good. It's club comedy.
Club comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
It's
it
a
was.
nice.
Club
It was
comedy.
new.
Right.
It was new. I think
Yeah.
when we were there, it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I appreciate you guys coming. Sorry you had traumatic, or Morgan especially.
Yeah,
had a
I'm
traumatic
fine.
Experience.
No, it wasn't because of you. It was because of him.
No, Morgan hasn't talked to me since.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
So how long have you been doing comedy?
Comedy. I started in July of 2016, so 8.5 years.
And before that, you were an accountant.
Yeah, budget analyst, to be more specific. And I was, not to brag, 1 year into stand-up, I was the grand prize winner of the 2017 Search for the South's Funniest Accountant.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys have a Pacific Northwest Funniest Accountant competition, but I'd love to.
There's lots of accountants here, but
Battle them.
none of them are funny.
Yeah. Well, it turns out it's a pretty easy contest to win.
He's
It's not a lot.
Parks and Rec.
It's
Yeah.
like- yeah. It's not really a gauntlet to go through.
So obviously, anyone that's listening to this is probably familiar with who your parents are, and so you grew up.
Louie and Shelley Giglio.
You grew up. Your dad pastors one of the largest churches in America. Was there ever an expectation growing up that you would be a minister, that you'd take over the church someday?
Never from inside the house. I think they knew me. They were like, not him. No, I think my dad grew up in a house where there probably was a little more of that, with my granddad being also a well-known pastor. And so I think my dad knew what that felt like and was very intentional about not trying to force any of that on us. It really backfired because I became a stand-up comedian.
You went the polar opposite.
Probably looking back, like I should have probably steered him a little more towards something.
So why comedy? How do you leave a life of accounting and go, I just want to make people laugh?
I was doing both for a while. It was definitely not a burn the boats. Like, I'm out of here to pursue my dreams. It was more of a started doing open mics at night, and opportunities started coming, and slowly transitioned in a safe way to like, oh, I have 6 months of income from stand up, so I'll be a comedian for at least 6 months, and then we'll see what happens.
Wow.
But that was 8.5 years ago. So it was funny when I quit my job. I had just accepted a new position at my company, and so I basically told my team I'm leaving to go take this other one. And so it was easy to leave them because they thought I was leaving anyway. But the new team, they were like, okay, so you ready to start? And I'm like, actually, not coming. I'm quitting. And I told them why, and they were like, okay, have fun with that. And then I talked to my friend who works there, and he said, yeah, when they interviewed for that position after you left, every interview at the end, they would go, all the candidates, they would be like, and by the way, you're not like a magician or anything, right? Like, make sure we're not going to get burned again. You don't have any hobbies outside of this? You don't have any aspirations?
So when did you really discover that I think I can make a living doing this?
Yeah, I didn't know you could. I started doing it just because it was fun. I wanted to do more comedy writing stuff, and I think I got an opportunity early on to. They wanted me to introduce my dad at Catalyst, a big conference that used to happen, and it was like thousands of people, ministry leaders, and it was in the morning, and I remember it was like a work day, so I had to tell my boss I have an appointment, drive across town to the arena and tell jokes to 7,000 people, and then drive back to my cubicle and act like I didn't just make 7,000 people laugh. But I remember I did that, and it went well. And I got like my first 2 like emails from organizations. One of them was from Convoy of Hope, which is how we met, doing some of their events. But one of them was from Dan Clark, and the other one was from a different organization. And they were like, "Hey, we want you to come to this other city and do this at our event." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, absolutely. I got vacation days." And they're like, "How much do you charge?" And I was like, "Never done that. Whatever number I said, they were like, we have to pay you more than that, or people will be like, who is this?" So I remember being like, "Oh, you would pay me like that much money to come do the thing I do for free and love?" Like, "Oh, awesome." And then those start leading to more and more things, and you realize like, "Oh, I make enough money, I could live off this. This is crazy." And it doesn't feel like work. And so slowly it kind of just became that without me really being like, how can I make this a job?
Go ahead.
No, so is most of your job on the road right now?
I do a lot in the Southeast to where I can drive and get home the same night. But yeah, I mean, in 2023, the last time I kind of measured it, I was like 90 nights in a hotel room, which is a lot.
Holy crud.
And now that I'm married, we're being a little more careful with that. But yeah, that is the job. They always say, like most of my comedian friends say, our job is really traveling, and then we just do the thing we love once we get there. But what people are paying us for is really to travel and be away from our families. Because we love this on-stage part we did for free long before it was an option to get paid. Like, it's what genuinely we love to do.
So what did your parents think when you kind of let the family know, I think I'm going to do this thing full time?
They were alarmingly supportive. I always tell them if they were worse parents, I would be a better comedian. Because I was like, thinking I might quit this job. And they're like, yeah, do that. And I'm like, nothing.
They did leave you with the bad babysitter.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's enough scars.
Drove a car over
There's
you.
enough scars from my childhood that I can have some things to talk about on stage. But no, I was like, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I was like, I don't know, you think I should quit? And she's like, yeah, you got to do the thing you love. So nobody tried to stop me, which I was kind of hoping someone would, so I could keep my safe job a little longer.
So, like, one thing we've talked about on the podcast, we had a local comedian on once. He's a pastor, but he just goes to breweries that have open mics at night. And
He is actually your opening act
Oh,
tonight.
great.
Oh, is he here
Awesome.
tonight? Oh, sweet.
What's his name?
Jason.
Jason Duman.
Cool.
Yeah, great
Excited
guy.
to meet him.
Yeah, he's awesome. So we talked about how I don't know how to be really in the moment. So like I laugh all the time. Like if I'm at a funeral and they have like some like
pretty funny.
yeah, and like they have some music or a chick's ugly crying, but she's got snot and no one's addressed it with a tissue.
Yeah. For saying that word.
What? Snot? Chick? Okay.
Oh, is Chick out?
I think I got canceled last time for saying chick. If
Yeah.
if a woman made in the image of God, has like snot down her face.
Yeah.
Anyways, I laugh at everything.
Yeah.
Like it helps me not be in the moment while being. Is that you too? Do you just find every like comedy all over?
I'm pretty respectful when it comes to people dying.
Okay.
Tend to be able to rein it in for moments like that. Not a child.
Oh, that was quick. That was good.
I'm a child.
No, those are the best laughs of your life, are when you're really not supposed to laugh. That's why church can be so funny. Like people farting in church is the funniest thing, because it's like you're really not supposed to do that here. Like that's what makes it funnier, and that's what makes it the uncontrollable thing. Is like we're at a funeral, can't be thinking this is. But the worst, I think we all have somebody in our life that like I would be able to totally be fine seeing this and not laughing. But if my brother is sitting next to me and I make any eye contact with him at all,
You're gonna
during
lose it.
We're both gonna have to leave.
Yes.
Because there's no version of us being able to contain ourselves around each other. I think everybody has one or two people in their lives that you can handle that situation alone, but if you are together, it is a problem.
That was the reason that I had to send Tony to another campus,
Yeah.
because we would be in services and things would happen, and we were not a
for
good.
each other.
We weren't a good influence on each other.
Yeah, PB sent me away because we laugh a lot. We find I'm not proud of it.
Yeah.
I laugh at the worst moments.
Yeah.
And
But it's just joy.
it is.
It's just joy coming out at the wrong time.
That's a great way to put it.
You know?
Yeah.
It's better to have too much joy than not enough.
Amen.
So I obviously got to know you on all these Convoy of Hope events that we were on together.
Yeah.
Do you still do those? Are you going to Norway this summer?
I've done so many. I'm like, y'all got to slow down. I can't write jokes as fast as y'all do these cruises. I don't have any on the books right now, but I keep in touch with them. They're awesome.
So without getting you in trouble asking this, do you enjoy that type of gig?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in comedy, you do so many gigs starting out where people are not paying attention. So the bar for a gig that I enjoy is not even that high. And those gigs are so fun because it's ministry leaders, it's pastors, it's the world I grew up in. So I feel very comfortable talking to groups like that. And from a business perspective, it's great because I'm in front of a lot of decision makers for nonprofits and churches, and that's what a lot of my year is traveling and going to do events. So I get in front of people that are like, oh, we like that. Let's bring you out to our thing. So to me, they're a ton of fun, especially with Convoy. Is like, we're going to these amazing destinations. I bring my wife. It feels like we're on vacation, and then I just happen to get to tell jokes.
You got to work 1 hour
minutes.
of the trip.
Yeah. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good deal.
What I remember, the very first Convoy trip I ever went on, John Christ was the comedian at it, and he didn't land well with the Convoy crowd. I thought he was hilarious, but he didn't land well.
Yeah.
Then the next year we had you. And I think you did something in a morning session and a night session. Yeah. And you killed it every single one. You landed so well with that crowd.
I'm going to text them right after this.
I will never forget it.
I think that's great.
I've played blackjack with both of you.
It's comedy is interesting. It's like, yeah, that's how you meet the comedians.
It is.
Blackjack table.
Yep.
And we're just like, this guy has a Convoy of Hope name tag, but I don't think it could possibly be.
I take the name tag off when I go to the blackjack table.
This experience at blackjack and invited to this event. But comedy is like, you can be an amazing comedian and it can be the wrong audience for you.
Yeah.
And I've certainly experienced that at times. And I've booked comedians to come do stuff with me, and I'm like, they're the funniest person I know. Oh, but this just isn't the right group for them. And I think John probably is the right group for that comedian for that group a lot of the time, but sometimes it just doesn't line up.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
I remember it. Literally, we were at the blackjack table afterwards, and I just looked at him. I went, rough crowd. It's like, just shook his head. Yeah.
I think one of the things I appreciate about your comedy, Andrew, is you're not just in the church world and just, doing comedy for Christians, which I appreciate. I actually enjoy. I think it's when you go to clubs and you go up there and you talk a little bit about your background and your life, and they notice you're not cussing and talking about defiling your wife. What's do people go up to you and
you haven't heard my new material, but
okay.
Go ahead.
What do people go hey, bro, are you Mormon? Do they ask you that, or are you good?
The goal is to be funny enough they don't notice how clean you're being.
Huh.
And a lot of times it feels like that, and then sometimes it does feel like you're standing out a lot. Comedians overall just care about if you're funny. It really, I'm that way in the other direction. I don't really I'm so desensitized to dirty stuff that I like jokes that are funny and creative.
Yeah.
And then I kind of were like, oh, that was filthy though. That's not the first thing I notice about the joke is you're thinking this is great and
Sure.
it's smart. And so comedians I've never, maybe when I was first starting out doing open mics and I had a mission trip joke or something, people were like, what is he talking about? But for the most part, I've felt way less of that than I expected to, of people being and there's so many clean comedians now that are in the mainstream that are doing so well in all avenues of being a comedian that are really respected that it's not a disqualifying thing. I think if I was doing jokes that are all about church and all about Christianity, then that would feel a little different. But my goal has always been to do stuff that will work in a comedy club, and I'm comfortable telling it at the type of church I would want to go to. Can't say all churches.
So let me ask you this. Why do you think we are seeing more the Nate Bargatzes, the Gaffigans of the world, who are just leaning more into cleaner comedy? Is it because, in my opinion, I think you have to be more creative to not cuss, to not talk just dirty stuff. I think it takes a lot of creativity to not for the sake of staying clean, but just being clean in general. Why do you think that is?
I think that I think people are in the comedy industry are realizing how much of an audience there is for the type of comedy that Nate is doing specifically. I mean, Brian Regan's been around forever.
Yeah.
And has been doing really well for a really long time. And the blue collar guys that were clean. And I mean, there's tons of
Yeah,
people doing
Foxworthy,
good job doing
Larry.
clean for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think Nate, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, or whenever his first Netflix thing was, where he's doing these arenas, and the people that are coming to it are not people that were going to other comedy shows. These are new people that probably didn't think comedy was a thing that they would enjoy because they have an experience like you've had at a comedy club where you go and you're like, oh, I can't get on board with the type of stuff they're talking about.
Oh.
But especially with streaming now, it used to be a comedy special. To get one of those was very hard. You had HBO had to give you one, or Comedy Central. There weren't all these other ways to put your stuff out. And for whatever reason back then, it was probably, I think it was more dirty in terms of who's getting opportunities. But now there's 11 streamers that are putting comedy specials out. And then if you don't have a streamer that wants your special, you just put it on YouTube and be Shane Gillis and have 36 million views on your YouTube special and your household name in the comedy. So there's so many ways for people to get seen. So it's not so much that people are better at clean comedy now. It's that even outside of stand-up, even with just entertainment in general, it's so much easier for people to find stuff that is very for them from an audience, from a consumer perspective, because so much stuff is coming out. And there's not just 3 channels that you better get chosen for people to have an opportunity to see you. Now there's, everything is, you can have entertainment very curated for you. And we're learning there's a lot of people, for them, that's cleaner comedy.
Yeah, they relate. You just filmed a special that's going online on TV. Where
we don't know where it's going yet. We filmed it 2 weeks ago today, or tomorrow. It went great. We filled up the Buckhead Theater 3 times and got had 3 really awesome shows. So we're editing it right now. It will meet all the requirements to be on the platform of like a Netflix. Like it'll be high enough quality and all that stuff to where it will qualify for any of that. So we'll put it together and we'll show it to all the streamers, see what the options are. And then we're also very comfortable just putting it on YouTube. Because like I just said, you just kind of, as soon as you're ready to make something now, you just make it.
Cool.
And if there's enough people that are going to like it, they'll find it.
And John Christ, his last thing he put on YouTube, and that went big.
His last one was really good.
Hundreds of thousands of views, if not in the millions. Even.
You ever had a phone go off in the middle of a bit?
Oh, for all the time. Yeah, I mean, you guys are preachers. You know how often that happens.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
I just keep going. Yeah.
It depends. Sometimes in comedy, sometimes it makes sense to address it, and sometimes there was a time when I was new where I would never address it because I was too nervous to go off script. Then there was a time where I would address it every time because it felt like something's happening. I need to latch onto that and see where it goes. And now I'm at the point where it's like, if I feel like most people can ignore it, I'm just going to ignore it. But if I think of something funny to say, I'll say it. But I'm not feeling pressure that something's happening in the room. I must latch on to it. So
you talked about going off script. So you go up, you do a show. Typical show is probably 60 minutes? 45, 60 minutes?
Yeah, like a normal headline says an hour, yeah.
So when you go up, do you have a specific script that you're going to follow? Or do you have multiple options and you kind of veer depending on how the crowd is responding?
Yeah, I always go up with a plan, and then just the longer I've done this, the more willing I am to deviate from that if it feels like I should.
How often will you work the crowd?
If I'm headlining at a comedy club, I try to do some of that. It's just fun. I certainly don't want it to be my main thing, but I've gotten to where I enjoy it a lot, and it's a great way to break up an hour of jokes.
Yeah, a lot of
change of pace.
Reels that have gone viral are you working the crowd.
Yeah, well, part of that is with comedy, you're so protective of your actual material because you don't really want people to see it until you're putting it out and you're kind of done with it. And so the reason crowd work has gotten so popular on social media for comedians in the last 3 or 4 years is because we learned, this is a great way to put out content that's not burning any of our material.
That's wise.
And it's good because of that. It can be bad because it got so popular with a handful of comedians specifically that blew up from crowd work that just like Nate's bringing in new stand-up comedy fans, these people are bringing in new stand-up comedy fans that maybe haven't been to clubs before. And now they kind of think that's what it is. And they show up to the club thinking, when's he going to talk to me? And it's not a huge problem, but it's not a thing. So it's interesting to see the consequences of comedians trying to solve the problem of how do I put out material without burning material creating this interesting new comedy audience that's like, talk to us when it's not really our main thing.
How do you like? I get it. You use the obviously you're going to use the same material over and over again. Like for us as preachers, we study, we write it, we do it,
It's gone.
and it's gone.
2 chances.
But
or
you go
3.
up there with no notes, and it's just living in
It's
there.
crazy.
How do you do that?
Oh, me? Oh,
yeah,
well, yeah,
like,
well,
I
you get
just-
to do it over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like for the special, like I did that hour hundreds of times. And especially leading up to it in the 2 months leading up, I was booking clubs, breaking even on money because I just wanted to go up and say it the exact way I want to say it, just get as many reps as you can. Because, you're like, I know this, but when I'm up there and the cameras are on and I'm feeling different than usual, I need to not be like, where am I? So it is a lot of practice, a lot of repetition, and making sure you know where you're at. And by the time you're recording stuff, you should know it so well that it's hard to throw you off. But when I'm working on new stuff, it is, that's when I'm more nervous about that because it's not as much muscle memory. It's more like, how does this one start? How does this one end? And then in the middle, let's see what we can find.
Do you ever go, when you're working out new stuff? One of the things where my condo in Vegas is, it was like a 5-minute walk to the Laugh Factory, which doesn't exist anymore. They tore it down. But my favorite thing about there is you would have major comedians that would show up at the Laugh Factory because they're working out new stuff. And there'd be like 30 of us in the crowd.
Eddie Murphy or
Yeah,
like
like
Aziz Ansari.
major
Huge people,
people.
yeah.
And I would see them up there with notes and things. You ever do that?
I don't take a bunch of notes. I don't ever feel like I got to take notes with me on stage. But working with bigger comedians, especially when they get to the point where they're having to turn over specials faster than like the natural flow of how an hour kind of comes together.
Yeah.
And they're kind of expediting the process. And so they might have an hour of new jokes kind of all at once versus how I built my first hour, at least, was like, all right, I got a new joke. That one's kind of doing well. Let's add it in. One joke at a time. But some of these comics the really successful ones, they can't take it that slow. So they're going up like, this is my new hour, and only 4 of these I know like the back of my hand. The rest of these are kind of loose things I'm working on. So you'll see them take stuff on stage. And when they're at that level, like you said, it's really fun to see them in that stage of their hour they're working on, because even if it's not as, punchy and funny as the finished product, audiences really do like feeling like they're a part of the process. And it's the same when they come to the special taping. Like that audience is very aware that there are, 6 massive cameras in this theater and that they're part of something we're making. And, it was fun after the last show. My director came out and he was like, to the audience, he was like, hey, you guys could stay in your seats a little longer. We're going to do Andrew coming out on stage one more time. Like it's the beginning of the show. Then we're going to have him do the end again. And then there's one joke we want to get him to do something special with a camera we're going to bring on stage. And if you guys just act like you're hearing some of this stuff for the first time, and all of a sudden they're like, we're actors in this production. We are so excited to be a part of this process. And it's really fun. And in the same way, I think when people are working on new stuff and they can tell they're working towards something, there's an excitement about being a part of it.
So Nate Bargatze has this residency now in Vegas. And a buddy of mine had gotten us tickets, really good tickets to, I guess it was probably one of the preview showings, like the first one, but it was packed, probably 4,000 or 5,000 people in there. And I'd seen him probably a dozen times live, and he came out with notes and he was using a teleprompter.
No way. Oh, that's cool.
I was like,
You need a teleprompter?
I felt
pastor.
so affirmed when I saw that. I was like, see,
Well,
this
the
is it. It
demand,
was-
like I said, the demand for him to do new specials, he's cranking them out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it is. It's at least one every less than 2 years in between when he's doing them.
Now, do comedians, how like when pastors write books and sell books, the pastor didn't really write the book. It's like ghostwriters or like, hey, you're for
Except
my
for your
sermon.
dad. Your dad writes all of his books.
My dad also wrote some of my granddad's books.
There it is. Do comedians have ghostwriters, or do you guys like?
Not usually. It's
Okay.
rare. I do know some that, especially if they're like also movie stars,
Kevin Hart, like those,
like people of that caliber,
Sure.
where their year is so busy, they're not doing stand up every night. And so I know that comics have teams of writers. Certain ones will, and that is a thing, but it's not very common because it's so hard to write in someone else's voice for stand up.
Yeah.
And people can give you ideas, but you're gonna still take it and you're gonna put your your persona onto it and change the way it's worded. And it's helpful to talk to comedians come when you're like, hey, I have an idea for a joke about this. Like, what do you think? Like, we'll help each other. But it's very rare somebody's like, let me say this joke someone else wrote. If it's for like an award show or a game or like a project, like absolutely.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
like the people that are hosting, the Golden Globes are not like, let me write every single one of these jokes myself. Or even for the roasts.
Yeah.
Like there are writers that are helping all those panelists come up with jokes or make them
And
better.
those ones are brutal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, preachers, we have pastors that we admire. Some of Pastor Brandon's are like Joel Osteen, Creflo Dollar,
Same.
Mike Todd.
Yeah.
As controversial as possible. They're my boys.
We
Yeah.
we attend Creflo's church in Atlanta on Sunday mornings.
Oh, do you really? That's wonderful. So who are some of like the comedians you like deeply admire? Like,
This won't be included in a reel. I promise.
yeah,
It's always hard because there's always new ones and ones that have been around forever. I mean, obviously, like I love what Nate is doing, and he's a role model for me for sure. I think Maria Bamford's one of the best comedians alive. Anything she does or Rory Scovel does, I have to see it. I think it's so different than what I do, and I like comedians that are like way different than me because it
Sure.
feels a little more like magic. Like the ones that are similar to me, I'm like, I wish I had thought of that because I could do that.
yeah.
But I like the comedians that are like, I wouldn't even know what to do with that joke if it came to me fully formed. Like
See-
I couldn't perform it like that.
So like a Fred Armisen, who's like,
Yeah, I
just
love that.
weird and
Yeah, I
musical and like,
I love Tim Robinson sketches.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
I like all that. But I always hate it. I feel like I miss opportunity to like share good comedians when people ask me this. But there's so much good comedy right now. It's crazy. I just watched an amazing special on YouTube, Carmen Christopher. Didn't know who he was. Turned it on, recognized him from some acting stuff, and I was just gonna watch a few minutes and watch the whole thing. One of the funniest things I've seen in forever. Not squeaky clean. Maybe not all the Pastors Unfiltered audience would enjoy it, but
There's lots of them. There is that new female comedian. Oh my gosh. Her stuff is super funny. She grew up in church and she rails on that experience a lot.
oh, she's
I'm trying to remember who
deconstructing.
she is.
new female comedian.
Oh man,
Who
blonde,
hates
younger.
Amy Schumer hates
No,
the church.
Blonde.
kind of in that general.
Younger.
I don't remember.
Would you call her a chick? Would
Well,
you-
Tony would.
Is she a
Easy.
chick comedian?
Where's
Tony
the
would,
Where's
but-
the bleep button?
As a
I don't wanna
Gen
start
Xer,
guessing.
we don't communicate that way.
She grew up in church. Catherine Blanford?
Her name's Taylor.
Taylor Tomlinson?
Yes.
Oh, she's massive.
yes.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Oh, she
Yeah.
is really funny.
Her story is crazy. She's so funny. Oh my gosh. And like in her 20s still.
Yep. Tells stories
Like
about all of
two-
her
two
boyfriends
Netflix
that break her
specials.
heart.
Every time
Yeah, she's hilarious.
She does for her ex-boyfriends in comedy what Taylor Swift does in music.
some of the my issue with some of the stand-ups is like their bits or their life is so unrelatable. Like, like I don't have an agent who also walks my dog and like, I don't have that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I feel like the comedians that I've always loved have been like, it's Sebastian Maniscalco talking about his experience at Chipotle. Talking about how those people look like zombies when they're scooping the food for you.
I think even the bigger name guys have discovered that if you talk about things that people can relate to, they
Yeah.
really dig it. Like Kevin Hart did a special where he just talked about being a dad and being a husband, and I thought it was hilarious.
He's
So-
pretty good.
Yeah, it's hard. That's why I'm choosing not to get as successful as I could. I just don't want to become unrelatable,
That is true.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, Ellen DeGeneres in her last Netflix special at the beginning, at least, she talked about that and kind of
Yeah.
played into that and was like making jokes about thinking she was relatable, but actually not.
I don't think she's funny.
I
I think she was in like the 90s, but
I
not
never
anymore.
really ever did. But have you done a bit that you took a lot of heat for?
This special comes out, there might be a couple things. There's only two things that I like don't usually do in churches that I really love and put in the special. One of them's about the devil, and one of them is about my wife's breast augmentation surgery. So stay tuned later.
You're on the
this
West
year.
Coast. You can get away with
Later
either
this
of those
year
tonight.
for,
Can we hear the bit on the devil?
Yeah, I'll do it tonight if you want. Yeah, it's not bad. It just makes people uncomfortable in church.
Listen, the last comic we had at the church, God bless him.
Mm-hmm.
Local guy, God bless him. You're gonna do just fine. You're gonna do all
Okay.
right.
That always makes me happy when I go somewhere and they're like, the last comedian we had, it was not a good situation. I'm like,
Well,
good. Bar is low.
I think we had him 3 times. Like
It was the
and,
same.
and he did
bit.
the same thing all
Sounds-
3
He
times.
knew he
I'm
was
like,
here.
Oh,
Change it
here's
up.
where he's gonna- and it wasn't funny the first time.
So
So,
it sounds
you
like
can do some of the same stuff, and I still I'm waiting anxiously.
I
want to
hear the devil
punchline.
bit now. Now
I'll
I'm
do it.
curious.
I'll do it tonight. Now that I have permission from the leadership.
Yep. So
I'm a just campus guy.
Here's the
That's
bit
why I brought it up.
a bit that you did that I've only heard you do one time.
Yeah. Oh, is it
And
the vaccine thing?
I think you were talking about going on an elevator.
Yeah. That was because it was about the COVID vaccine.
Oh,
So it kind of lost
I
relevance.
still think that is the funniest bit I've ever.
At Convoy, I didn't do it because I had done it before, and Darren Whitehead was like, "Can Andrew have another set so he can do this joke?" And they were like, "Andrew, people are wanting you to do another set because you didn't do one of the jokes they wanted." So
That
they
one?
made me go back up and do that one. Yeah,
Well, I mean that was one of your reels. I think that went viral. Was
I
that
posted
joke?
it a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I loved that. I
Yeah.
thought maybe you stopped doing it because you took heat for it.
No, I don't. No, the funny thing is, it's never like people who I care about liking me are not the ones that are usually ever upset about stuff that I put out.
Do you think about that when you walk off stage? Be like, man, I really hope they liked me, or like, who do you think about when you walk?
When
off?
when did you
yeah,
get to the
did-
point where you stopped walking off the stage thinking, "Did I stink or was I good?" When did you
Yeah.
stop worrying about that?
I do really two very different types of shows. I'm doing mostly the same jokes at them, but like I look at my career as like kind of two pieces. Like some nights I'm working for myself, and some nights I'm working for the people that hired me. So like tonight I'm working for you guys. You guys hired me. I'm not gonna do the boob job joke because it's probably not the best for this event. Overall, it'll be 80% of the people's favorite thing I do, and the other 20% will write you emails. And so I'm not going to put somebody who hired me and brought me out to,
Sure.
I'm never going to do something that's going to make them wish I didn't come.
Sure.
But if it's my show, I'm going to do whatever I want. And I'm not going to, if people don't like it, I don't really have to care. I'm going to be like, well, that's the kind of comedy I want to do. So if they're not going to follow my career now, it was probably just a matter of time. And so then I'm comfortable with people not liking it because it's just me.
Yeah.
And to answer your other question of when did I get comfortable kind of being like, do I stink at this after a bad show? At a certain point, you get enough data to know which reactions to jokes are outliers.
Yeah.
And so, especially with this last hour that I just taped, I had done these jokes so many times that if I open with a joke that I know works and people generally love, and it doesn't work, I know it's not me because it works 99%. Like it doesn't mean
It's like
that
our sermons.
It doesn't mean that I can't work harder to win this audience over. And hey, they
It
don't
is
like this. But
insanely relatable
is
as a
similar to-
preacher.
it
After
really
a while, you're like, I've been doing this for 20 years. The church is really large now. I can kind of walk off the platform and feel like, even if that didn't land as well as I would have liked, I got next week.
yeah,
And people would have stopped coming 20 years ago.
I mean, 2 weeks ago, we literally just preached on tithing.
yeah,
And every time we go to tithing, I kind of like walk into church, kind of clench myself a little bit
Yeah.
and go, hey, here we go. And I'm at this point now, I'm like, it's in the Bible, so I'm just going to preach it. And
Yep.
whether you like it or not, I don't care.
So
Yeah,
for
I
you,
think you should say that when you go on stage before that. Be like, just so you guys know, I'm
He
clenched.
would.
I'm clenched right now.
he would say
Like,
that.
I don't feel that comfortable talking to you guys about this, but it's in the Bible, and I'm clenched. If you guys are feeling clenched, just know that I am too.
So are you
And
more
I think people would love it. Let's name the series
clenched?
Clenched.
When
Next
we
week is sex.
when we do the
Yeah,
time where the
next week
campus
we can
pastors can do
all-
their own
we can
thing,
all chill
Tony has freedom to do that.
Yeah.
So for you, are you at this point in your career, are you more comfortable doing comedy in front of the church crowd or the secular crowd?
Secular crowd.
Okay.
Because it's just more
Are they more
free.
gracious?
No, I mean, I'm comfortable in both. I think when it's last month I did like 6 comedy clubs where I was just headlined and I had an opener, and then I did my hour the way I like it, and people that were there bought tickets because they either thought it would be good or they knew me and wanted to come. And that's the best because it's people that
They're
have
buying a
decided
ticket
to come see
actually
me,
hear you.
whether they've seen me before or not, and that's the best. But also, my home club in Atlanta is the Laughing Skull Lounge, and it's 4 nights a week. It's showcases where it's 10 comedians doing 8 minutes each, and that's a group of all different types of people. It's super diverse, every single possible background, and that's where you learn what material is great because it works in that room, in a room all at different ages, and that's where it's the most rewarding when you do well.
How often are you performing there?
Whenever I'm home, I'm trying to. I mean, I did 4 minutes on the open mic this week because I had a new idea for a joke. I'm like, I'm gonna come to the open mic, and they throw me up there, and then I end up hanging in the green room for 2 hours because all my friends are there. But that's where you're like, oh, I tried something in front of this general audience who has no preconceived notion when I walk on stage. There's no, oh, we're expecting this to be good, or oh, wait, who's his dad? Like, there's no, it's the blank canvas of. The jokes kind of stand on their own, and it's the best way to know what works and what doesn't work. And it's the most fun when that crowd is like afterwards, like, "Oh, we want to follow your career." After that,
How often does your wife go to your shows?
she goes to all the Convoy ones because of the hotels that we stay at. It's hard during the week because she works. But if it's the weekend and it's a fun place and she's not super busy, like. If this were tomorrow night, she would have come with me to this because she'd be like, "Oh, I've never been to Seattle. I want to come."
Does she still find you funny?
It's fun because I'll see her laughing in the crowd, and I'm like, "You heard this 100,000 times."
Because Ariel and Di don't find Tony
They don't
and I
think
funny
we're
anymore.
funny anymore.
Well, at home, no, not so much. She likes the jokes because she's approved of them, and she feels like she's a part of all of it.
Oh.
But she's very hard when I have new ideas, and if I can get her to like something at home, I know it will work. And if she doesn't like it, it still might work.
I will sometimes, actually, for the most part, after church on Sunday, I don't ask anyone their opinion of my sermon. Except I'll ask my wife. I'll go, "Hey, how did that land?"
You ask?
I do. I do.
I stopped asking 15 years ago.
And the problem is she gives honest feedback that's like really good.
Yeah.
And I hear
ignore it.
And I'm like, oh, so I did awful. But
So-
she's not, she's just being honest.
When you have
It's
as many
good stuff.
services I have to speak on a Sunday,
Yeah.
I get the feedback from Di after the first service.
Because she wants you to have room to make adjustments.
Oh, yes. And so if you actually get my notes afterwards, it's got all this red lines cut. So
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say real quick,
Yeah.
I have had to tell Anna, I'm like, "Hey, I really do want to know what you think, but sometimes we need to like get to the car first." Before you're like,
And your
"Hey,
wife's
I
an
noticed,
attorney,
I
right?
noticed this." Yeah. So she's it was great during the special, during the first 2 shows. She literally was sitting backstage with a legal notepad making notes to be like, "Hey, you forgot to say this."
you
'Cause
could
she
get
knows
sued
my
for
act
this.
so well.
You could get sued for that.
No, well, she has said that before for things that we certainly did not put in the special. But she knows my act so well. She was like, "Hey, you forgot to say this. Make sure you say this in the next show." And I'm like, "Oh, you're totally right. I did forget to say thank you." And like, so she's very like, likes to treat it as, my career is a second job to her. And she's so helpful in an actual, not annoying, but like, "Oh, I wouldn't be where I am without you" type of way, which is cool.
Once you start running out of material, then you start having kids. And
We are
kids
having a
give.
baby in June.
Okay,
Oh.
kids
For
give
that very
unlimited.
reason.
Fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the sermon illustrations just start coming
So
out everywhere.
is this your first?
It'll be first.
All
Yeah.
right, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, super
Fun.
excited.
So you
Yeah.
were
my
probably
my
not-
parents are going to find out from listening to this podcast.
Well, you're probably not going on that Convoy of Hope cruise in June then, I would think.
No, we will not be available in June for anything.
Dad, I was on this podcast. Check it out. You're gonna
No.
love it.
Well, I'll be like, "Honey, I know that you're having the baby, but I just got this really good opportunity for this Europe cruise. I'm going to go alone."
All right, here's the first.
Well, the first Europe cruise we met on, I brought my friend.
Yes. the second one, you brought your brother.
No brother. That was just my buddy.
Well, no, but you brought your brother one time.
Oh, maybe. For the last one,
Because your brother
my brother-in-law
won
was
the
there.
blackjack tournament, I think.
Oh, maybe so. I don't know. They all blend. Oh, my brother was there on the most recent
Yeah.
one. Yeah, you're right. He was.
Stanley kids are good.
My
at
wife was
gambling.
also there, but yeah.
I didn't grow up a pastor's kid, nor did Pastor Brandon. What you have mentioned, like when you go to a secular club, they don't know who your parents are. I mean, your grandfather has a legacy. Your dad has. I mean, it's awesome. It's what a gift. What's that like in the church world? Do you feel like sometimes people want to schmooze you just because of your family, or is it like? Do you ever find that like affecting like your gigs and whatnot?
Not too. I mean, sometimes people make it weird in a way that I'm kind of comfortable with. Like I'm just kind of used to. Like, yeah, sure, it's awesome. Yeah, it's great. And also, I'm very proud of them. So when people are gushing about it in a way that's maybe uncomfortable, I still am like, I still do take that, like receive that in a way of like, it's so cool they have had an impact on these people.
Awesome.
I've never felt taken advantage of. If anything, I take advantage of that more than it's ever being taken advantage of in my direction. No, I mean, there's always people that want to talk to me after shows, and it's very funny. Like after shows, I'll be out in the lobby or meeting people, shaking hands, and I can see them coming from a mile away, and they're so excited. I'm like, they're not coming to tell me how good of
They
a
have a
job
copy
I
of your
just
dad's
did.
book that they want you to sign.
The whole show, they were just sitting there like, I can't wait to tell him my story, but I have about his granddad used to always be out in our house.
So was your grandpa able to see you before he passed away?
One time,
Because I would really wonder what Charles Stanley thought of
yeah,
his grandson being a comedian.
I wonder still. He only saw me once, I think, and it was years ago. So it wasn't towards the end or anything. But I had been doing stand up for maybe like 2 years or something, and they had me come do the In Touch Ministries Christmas party. So his whole ministries, all the employees, for good old lunchtime stand up comedy, and I was very nervous.
No
And-
devil joke there, though.
No, I
Boob
hadn't-
joke, no
thankfully
boob
hadn't-
augmentation
I didn't write
joke.
those till he was already gone. Too scared. But I remember it went well, and then we went up to his office afterwards, and I was like, "Gramps, what did you think?" And he goes, "I was very relieved." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "You were very clean." I was like, "Gramps, even if I was out here telling the worst jokes you've ever heard, you think I was going to come to the In Touch Ministry Christmas party and be like, well, you get what you get. These are my, like, I would have said no to the, like."
If you
So,
really think about it,
he was relieved.
you
is
have
what I got.
your grandpa who is suits, formal. Like, I don't think his hair has ever not been in that
Yeah.
spot.
Yep.
So then he has your dad who's much more wild than him.
Yeah.
And then your dad has a professional comedian. What is your child going to be?
Yeah, I think about that. Yeah.
Something totally different than all of those
Yeah,
occupations.
reality
What-
TV star, I guess.
NASCAR?
I don't know. Yeah. Love Island. Something.
Below deck.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Well, hey, we got to land the plane. Andrew, thanks for flying out here and being with us tonight, man. Honestly,
That was just a quick 6-hour flight. It's easy.
yeah, we need to come visit you. Last time I was in Atlanta, it's not that I had a bad time, but I also didn't have a good time.
Yeah.
I had taken 25 of our interns to Passion Conference, and our flight got canceled, and we got in super late. There's like
Staying in downtown Atlanta.
downtown Atlanta with no food. There was like
Yeah.
not even a Waffle House was open.
Yeah.
We lost weight on that trip.
Yeah.
And it was a good trip for us and Jesus,
Yeah.
but we left ravenous, and it was like a fasting and prayer.
So you're a little bit bitter with Atlanta.
I just didn't get to see Atlanta. We were there for 48 hours.
Yeah.
Things were shut down.
If we come together, can we sit next to you at Creflo's Church?
Yeah, you guys can come. I got a whole roped off section.
we don't have to tithe. That's the best part.
Yeah, don't have to.
He's really into high fiving people.
Yeah. Passion Conference is the only time in my life I've ever been to Hooters. We were there in college with a big group, and the wait at all the other restaurants was so long because of all the people from Passion Conference. But guess what restaurant had no wait at Passion Conference? And so we were like, you know what? We're doing this. And we went to Hooters
All
at
right.
Passion Conference.
Hey, there's the reel to
pretty
advertise
good.
this episode right
Pretty good.
there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, brother, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for
Appreciate you.
having me. It was
Yeah, it's
fun.
gonna be a lot
Very
of fun. It's gonna be awesome. Don't forget, if you were offended today with anything that we said,
Mhm.
as we always say, email morgan.b@ourventure.church. He loves your feedback. Please don't forget to give us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. And to the faithful 253, thank you for being part of this community, constantly engaged, listening. And we love your feedback. We love when we get texts and DMs and calls, and we appreciate it. We really do.
And for what it's worth, we really are kidding whenever we say anything on
I hope people,
podcast.
I know people have said, well, you guys are on the podcast. I hope you know, like, we're also just having fun. Like, we're not, this isn't like, it's not that we're not being a full transparent version of ourselves. We're just having fun. It's a way to just enjoy what we're doing. So, with that being said, let's go to the date night. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just saying, date night is next after this recording. So let's go, date night. Yeah. You want to just end it?
Jesus is the hope of the world.
There it is.
Let's make him famous.
Raiders roll.